check in on the Vikings. Pete Bercich from the Vikings Radio Network joins us now with our outside view look at Minnesota. The Vikings 3-2, the Eagles 3-2. Kind of a separation type of day, Pete, where both these teams, I guess, are kind of right in that jumbled mess in the NFC. But the winner of this game will probably have people talking about them on Monday.
No question about it. It's going to be, and for us, thank goodness we're able to play this game here, in Minnesota, because that's going to be a huge advantage. But yeah, this is about the time of year, when teams start to separate, you start separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, right? And, losing 2 divisional games on the road for us in Green Bay and in Chicago really gives us a much smaller margin of error in the division and especially in the conference. So, yeah, this is a very important game for the Minnesota Vikings.
Let's talk about this Minnesota offense and what you see. Now, you were a linebacker, so obviously this is the kind of team you'd probably like to see, a team that runs the ball right at you. They've been doing a lot of it, but they got a lot of weapons out there. But is that their best attribute on offense, running the ball?
Well, I think you look at Dalvin Cook. I was fortunate enough to call, on the radio every single game that Adrian Peterson played as a Minnesota Viking. Now, am I saying Dalvin Cook is Adrian Peterson? No. But is he one of the top running backs in the NFL? I think so. I think he has the speed, the quickness. And here's the difference with running backs is you have some that can get to that second level and maybe get a 20-yard gain, whereas Dalvin Cook is quick and fast enough that if he can get to the second level and get one-on-one with a safety, he can beat a safety and outrun someone into the end zone, hence a 70-yard touchdown run earlier this year. So, yeah, he's an outstanding running back, and we just could not get him going. Against Chicago, you guys allow less rushing yardage per game than I think even the Bears do. So, that being said, the ground game is not going to be the easiest way to move the football. I mean, you probably know this from an offensive line and defensive line standpoint. You guys probably have the best fronts combined in the NFL. I mean, you guys have an outstanding offensive line. Your defensive line is outstanding as well. So getting yards on the ground is going to be tough.
Yeah, Minnesota 166 per game, third most. Philly averages just 63 against, fewest in the NFL.
So I'm wondering, with that, Pete, how much it sounds like the left guard, Josh Klein, is not going to play. I believe I read recently that he's going to be out. So center, left guard, you assume the Vikings may not be able to run the ball as well as they have against the Eagles because of their run defense. And in pass blocking, how much is the absence of the left guard going to hurt here?
Well, you have Pat Elflein playing guard, who was our center last year. He had kind of a rough year, but he had injuries to his upper body and lower body, both on the same side. He's at guard, and what he's learning very quickly is that when the center turns the other way and you need to block a Fletcher Cox one-on-one, it's not an easy job to do. You know what I mean? Dakota Dozier has been the guard who's come in and filled in when needed. And Dakota is he's a good run blocking guard. Maybe a little bit less on the what's keeping him from being a starter, I think, in the league is his pass protection. So the middle of that offensive line with Garrett Bradbury, who's a rookie, he's actually starting. He's played very, very well against the Giants. He's had lesser games earlier, but he's young. So you have the middle of this offensive line that's not 100%, and it's a very, very astute point. It's like, yeah, you're already going in this game with an offensive line that's a little bit nicked up, and you see a team that allows 60-some yards on the ground per game that you're going to have to go through the air. And I think we took that stance with the Giants a week ago. Not that the Giants have a front anywhere near as good as yours. We take the path of least resistance, and that's kind of the thing in the NFL is you got to have balance. You've got to be able to win throwing the ball and running the ball. And fortunately for us, Cousins did better in the pocket and had a better presence and was more accurate and hung in there a little bit more than we've seen, and ended up being a good day, especially for Adam Thielen.
What's been the narrative up there in Minnesota with all of this, as far as Kirk Cousins with the 10 pass attempts early on in the year, and then now last week, like you said, against the Giants, they opened it up a little bit, they being the Minnesota Vikings, and put the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands. But on this side of the fence, we don't really know what to expect going into this game against the Minnesota Vikings. We mentioned the Eagles' run defense being number one and how strong the Minnesota Vikings run game is, but how is the Kirk Cousins narrative up there? Are they questioning the play calling? Is this just matchup based, or do you think that they're being a little hesitant with him?
Well, I think here's the thing. You look at the Atlanta game where we only had 10 attempts. We only they didn't need to throw the ball any more than that. Atlanta came in, fumbled the ball, turnovers early, got it. We got in the lead. We had a big lead early. There was no need to throw the football. You fast forward, you play Green Bay and in Chicago. And what's killed us are penalties. The first drive that the Bears had, we had a sack, forced fumble, and we had a recovery. Everson Griffin recovers the fumble. Danielle Hunter, knocks out the quarterback, and it gets called back because of a penalty. And in both the Green Bay game and the Chicago game, we had deep passes that would have gone for touchdowns that were both overthrown by Cousins. Cousins has put the ball on the ground 8 or 9 times already this year. So the fumbles, putting the ball on the ground, and the penalties have kept us. Really, we should be a one-loss franchise. If we'd have completed 2 passes this year, one against Green Bay and one against the Bears, we would have won at least one of those 2 games. You know what I mean? And so it's frustrating to see the fumbles. It's frustrating to see the penalties, especially at inopportune times. I mean, when you turn the ball over and turn a team over, you have to. You can't lose it because of a penalty. So if the Vikings come out and play penalty free and we don't put the ball on the ground, this is going to be a hell of a game. And that's really you're not that far. Nothing's as good as it seems. Nothing's as bad as it seems. And somewhere between reality lies. And really, we've been our own worst enemy when it comes to penalties and putting the ball on the ground. And if that gets corrected, I think the Vikings are going to, they should be a one-loss franchise at worst right now.
Pete Bercich from the Vikings Radio Network covering the Eagles-Vikings game on Sunday. You can listen to the game live on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at 10. We talked a lot about the offense, but that defense is pretty good. And I remember when Minnesota was here 2 years ago in that NFC Championship game, that defense was the story, really. I mean, Case Keenum and that offense was kind of the, playing second fiddle to that defense. Where is that defense now?
They're playing very, very well. I mean, Danielle Hunter is playing well. Everson Griffin is back. He missed some of last year with some some mental issues and things, and he's playing very, very well. Linval Joseph is a fantastic nose tackle, but the 2 guys that are really, really playing well, number one is Eric Kendricks, middle linebacker, and he leads the team in tackles by about 25 right now. And then there's Anthony Barr, and Anthony Barr at 6'5" can run a 4.5. He's an unbelievable athlete, and when he is engaged, and by engaged I mean aggressive and wants to get after it, he's an unbelievable playmaker. And some games he'll just kind of disappear, but the last couple of weeks he's been rock solid. Xavier Rhodes, even during this week, was talking about some fundamental things that he needs to change. They've been some communication issues. We have Mike Hughes, who was our first-round draft pick, playing nickel. He's shown up quite a bit. Trey Waynes has played very consistently. And then you have, Harrison Smith at free safety. So the defense seems they've been kind of leaky early. We've given up a lot of points early in games, but as games have gone on, they've really, done a good job. But then again, we've had our issues with scrambling quarterbacks. And guys that are able to extend plays, and Carson Wentz is an absolute the kind of guy that you need to keep him in the pocket. If you let him out, he's going to hurt you deep and throw the ball deep, and he has the ability to make things up as they go. And here's another thought for you too. We've only given up, the Vikings defense has only given up one 100+ yard receiver since US Bank Stadium has been built. And the two top receivers have both been tight ends, and Zach Ertz is coming in, Dallas Goedert. You have 2 really good tight ends. So, if you're a fantasy freak, I would say that Zach Ertz is a definite start, because tight ends have been a bit of an enigma with us. Teams, can they beat you with a tight end? Normally, no, but Zach Ertz is a good enough player. I think he's going to get a lot of throws his way on Sunday.
All right, it's the Eagles and the Vikings. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tony Bruno, countdown to kickoff, starts at 10 right here on 97.3. He's Pete Bercich on the Boardwalk Honda hotline from the Vikings Radio Network, kind enough to give us a little insight on the Minnesota Vikings, who are hosting the Eagles. And unless I heard, the Vikings and Eagles fans get along pretty well.
That is, it's funny because, I grew up in Chicago, right? And you get to play all over the country, and it's just, we're up here in flyover land, and you just want to tell them, you say, it's not like this everywhere you go. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different, all over the country. And the NFC Championship game that we played there, that was, anybody who was there, man, that was an experience. I mean, that was pretty amazing, and what a great game. I mean, the whole thing was just fantastic as far as from my standpoint, from having been around and played in 2 NFC championships and called a couple on the radio. It's just been fun, and it's we don't hate you guys like we do the Packers, but that's a friendly rivalry here, and that's really the thing. It's just our hatred for Green Bay. So
I enjoyed my time in Minnesota. The people were very nice. The Mall of America was great, and it was a great venue for the Super Bowl. Pete Bercich joining us here to give us a little insight. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.